Hello, this is Carson Winter back with another guide for the 2024 Number Sense Region test. I'll be trying to explain all the problems in the test to the best of my abilities and how to solve each of them. Without further ado, let's begin. 330 minus 2024. Well, 2024 is bigger, so pretend like we're taking 2024 minus 330 and then make the answer negative. So 4 minus 0 is 4. 2 minus 3 is -1. We need to add an extra 10 to help with that. So add an extra 10 to make it 9. Then once you have that, you have 0. You brought over a 10, so -1 and then minus 3. That also needs help. Add another 10 to that, and you get 6. And then you used 1/10s in the hundreds place, which means you take away 1 from the thousands place, and you get -1,694. 2024 plus 3 times 2024. Well, that's basically the same thing as 2024 times 4. You can split the segments 2000 times 4 plus 24 times 4 and get 8,096. 30.24 divided by 3 is what? Well, okay. You can also split this into two segments. 30 over 3 plus 0.24 over 3. So 30 over 3 is 10. And then 0.2 over 3 is 0.08. So 10.08 is your answer. 27 squared. You can either have this memorized or you can use FOIL. You should know how to do FOIL by now. If you're watching these, if not, please learn that. So yeah, the answer is 729. 5 over 16 is what a percent. You can either have this fraction memorized or you can do a few tricks to figure it out. You know that it's 5 over 16 is 4 over 16 plus 1 over 16. So 4 over 16 is 0.25, and then 1 over 16 you should know is 0.625. Add them together and you get 31.25%. 333 times 1 over 37. Well, 111 over 37 is 3. That's a ratio you should know. So 3 times that, times the 3 you get from 111 over 3, and you get a value of 9. 33 times 24. Well, divide this side by 3, multiply this side by 3 to counteract that, and you get 11 times 72, which means you can use the multiplying by 11's trick. So 1's place, 1's plus 10's place, and then 10's place, 792. The greatest common denominator of 20, 24, and 30 is what? Well, the greatest common denominator of 20 and 24 is clearly 4. And then the greatest common denominator of 4 and 30 is 2. Because you replace 20 and 24 with 4. Is there anything that's not divisible by, yeah, I'm not going to completely explain why, but basically, the greatest common denominator of these is 4, so it doesn't make any sense to have a greater common denominator than that. Okay, m is 1,000, x is 10, so 2,030, minus c is 100, and x is 10, like we discussed, minus 320, and you get 1710. 10 approximation problem. Well, a lot of these 10s in 1's place don't really matter, so get rid of them. 2,000 minus 300 plus 3,300 minus 300. 1,700 plus 3,000, if you want to simplify that, and you get 4,700. Oh, okay. Here's the thing. Canvas is currently down, so I've been solving them on my own. I have to figure out the sum, not how many there are. My apologies. Give me a second. I believe the answer is 223. Let me just check that real quick on the calculator. Yeah, 223. You should have your sequence memorized of number of primes given in tens place. When there's 0 in the tens place, there are 4 primes. 1 in tens place, 4 more primes. 4, 4, 2, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, 2, 1. And you will, and as you can see, that's based on that series, the 7 tens place has 3 prime numbers, and then you just figure those out to be 71, 73, and 79. How many integers are between negative 20 and 24? Well, there are 0 integers between 23 and 24. So if you're expanding that out a bit, you're subtracting the two numbers and subtracting 1 off of that to figure out how many numbers between. So 24 minus negative 20 is 44, minus 1 is 43. 13, 33 times 31 over 34. Well, this is equivalent to 33 minus 3 over 34 times 33, which you can counteract by removing 3 from your whole number and adding 102 over 34, which is just 3. And then you can subtract that fraction you made negative by multiplying negative 3 over 34 times 33, and you'll get a value of 30 and 3 over 34. 14, 20 divided by negative 2 times 3 plus 30. 20 divided by negative 2 is negative 10 times 3 is negative 30 plus 30 is 0. 15, 30 divided by 2 over 5. Well, when you divide a fraction, you flip the numerator and denominator and multiply. 30 times 5 over 2 is equal to 15 times 5 is 75. Then we're process done for 16. 30 over 4 times 5, you can do, which is 7.5 times 5, which is 37.5. And finally, 30 divided by 6 over 5. 30 over 6 times 5 is equal to 25. 18, difference of squares. Add the two squares, multiply it by the difference between the two squares. So 62 times 4, which is equal to 31 times 8. Divide by 2, multiply by 2. And you get a value of 8 for your answer. 1 over 64 minus 1 over 16 minus 1 over 4. Well, you got to convert all these to over a common base. 1 over 64 is fine. Convert negative 1 over 16 to negative 4 over 64. And I miswrote that. My apologies. And then negative 1/4 to negative 16 over 64. And if you do that, then subtract those all together, you'll get negative 19 over 64 as your answer. 20, 33 times square root of 20 plus square root of 24. Well, square root of 20 is pretty close to 4.5 squared, so we'll say it's that value. And square root of 24 is pretty close to the square root of 25, which is 5. So 33 times those two numbers added, 9.5. It's going to be a little less than that. 33 times 9.5, it's a little less than 330, around 310 or so. So remove a little from that, then you get a value of 300, which is in range. 21, 5.58333 times 72. This is a fraction you should know is 7/12. You're adding 0.0833 from 1 over 2 or 6 over 12. So multiply 7 over 12 by 72. 72 divided by 12 is 6, times 7 is 42, and you get your answer. 22, you just FOIL it. 4 times 4, get you 16, carry a 1. 4 times 1 plus 4 times 2, plus that 1 you carried over is 13. Carry another 1. 3 times 1, 3 times 4 plus 4 times 2. You should know how to do this. And if you do that, you should get 4.536. Round square root of 6 to the nearest hundredths place. Well, square root of 6 you should hopefully have memorized to be equivalent to 2.449. So that rounded to the hundredths place is 2.45. 23% of 40 is what percent of 10? Well, 23 times 40, or 0.23 times 40, or whatever, is equal to 10 times some number. That's what percent of basically means. So if you simplify this, you get 23 times 4 is equal to x, so x is just 92. 25, the number of positive integral factors of 30 is what? Well, to figure out integral factors, put your number in terms of primes, 2 times 3 times 5. Take the exponents on each of them, which are all 1. Add 1 to them and multiply them all together. So 1 plus 1 times 1 plus 1 times 1 plus 1 gets you 8. 26, well, how do you solve this? Well, you got to multiply the whole numbers, so 15 times 8. 120. You multiply whole number by fraction, whole number by fraction. It's like FOIL basically. 8 over 4 times 3 is equal to 2 times 3 is equal to 6. 15 over 3 times 2 is equal to 5 times 2 is equal to 10. Add those together and you get 136 as your whole number. And then you also have to multiply the fractions by each other, which will net you 1/2. 27. Divide 24 into 4 parts such that the ratio of the 4 parts is 1, 2, 3, 4. The largest part is what? Well, the ratio of your largest part is 4 over the sum of all your ratios. So 4 over all them combined, which is 10, is equal to 2 over 5. So multiply 24 by that 2 over 5 ratio, and you'll get the length of your largest part. 28. Convert both of these to improper fractions. So 14 over 5 divided by 37 over 10. You're dividing by a fraction, so flip it. 14 over 5 times 10 over 37. 14 times 2 over 37. 28 over 37. How many integers between 3 and 63 are divisible by 8? Well, 63 divided by 8 is less than 8 but greater than 7, which means there are 7 divisible numbers divisible by 8. And the other range, 3, does not prevent that from happening. So it is indeed just 7. 30, 15122 divided by 135. Well, that's pretty close to 150 divided by 135, which is 10 over 9 simplified. So just write that, and now you need to figure out how many digits you need to write. Well, there are 5 values after the first digit. There are 2 values after the first digit you're dividing by. 5 minus 2 means you need 3 digits after the first num you write. So 1 and then 111 will get you your correct answer. 31, 1776 times 24 plus 576. Well, this is equivalent to 1800 minus 24 times 24 plus 24 times 24. These two things cancel each other out. 1800 times 24. If that's a little too hard to do, you can do distance from a square. So 21 squared minus 9, or 21 squared minus 3 squared. And you get 432 times 100. X plus y is 6, and x minus y is 4. X squared plus y squared is what? We'll add the two equations together, and you get 2x is equal to 10. So x has to be equal to 5, and then by plugging in x, you can see that y is equal to 1. So yeah, you just do that here. 33, 4x squared minus 12x plus 9. Well, this is the equivalent of 2x minus 3 squared. You can pretty much assume whenever you see something like this that you're going to be able to simplify, because negative 3 squared will get you 9. 2 times negative 3 times 2 will get you negative 12, and 2 squared will get you 4. So plug in 15 for x, and you get 27 squared, which is 729. 34, 41.5 minus 7.75. You can do that. You can also make things a bit easier on yourself. Increase this number by 0.25 and increase the number you're subtracting by 0.25, and you'll get an equivalent equation, but now the math is a lot easier. So 33.75. And once you have that, go 35. 35 is from 34, but subtracting this 9 and 7/8. Well, we can do the same process as before. Add 1/8 to the number to your original number. Add 1/8 to the number you're subtracting by. 33.875 minus 10 is 23.875. 36. Well, 36 is problem 35, but instead of you're subtracting 7.75, you're adding 7.75. Which just means you're adding 2 times that from problem 35. So you're adding 15.5, and if you do that, you'll get 39.375. Again, you can use the same process as before, except this time you add it to the first number and subtract it from the second number because you're adding them together. Regardless, you get your answer. 37, given 0.125, 1/4, 3/8, 5/8, 8/8, 13/8, 21/8. You can kind of see the pattern, basically. It's Fibonacci, but everything is divided by 8. So 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34. 34 plus 13 is 47 divided by 8. Smaller root of 4x minus 1 squared is equal to 9 is what? Well, smaller root means that when you take the square root, you make this negative. So 4x minus 1 is equal to negative 3. And then you just solve for x. And you get negative 1/2. 39, algae, union, geo, union, trig, intersection of pre-cal. Well, these are all together, which means the union is going to be all unique elements in any of these three sets, and that's going to be compared to saying that it must also be in pre-cal. So in other words, the problem is asking how many letters in pre-cal are in one of these three sets. So P is not in there, R is in there right here, E is in there right here, C is not, A is here, and L is here. So 4 distinct elements. 40 cube root of 4, yeah, I'm not reading all that. But basically, you got to group it into sections of 3 because you're cube rooting. Here's a segment of 3, here's a segment of 3, and then you have your 4 left over, so there's 3 digits. And once you have that, you need to figure out what cubed gets you approximately 4.2. Well, 1.6 cubed, I forgot, I wrote that off, sorry. And 1.6 cubed will get you approximately 4.096 because 16 cubed is 4,096. So it's a little more than that. So add an extra 5 onto the 160 you'd get normally, and you get 165. So yeah, the key thing is that your first two digits are 1, 6, and then it's a little more than that, and you need 3 digits. 41, 75% of 3/8 of 64 is what? Well, 3/8 times 64 is 24. And then 24 times 3 over 4, 24 over 4 is equal to 6 times 3 is equal to 18, and you got your answer. 42, 3 power to 5 plus 5 power to 5 minus 7 divided by 8 has a remainder of what? Well, since these are the same distance from 0 and 8, and they are powered to an odd number, the 3 and the 5 cancel each other out in terms of remainder. So then you just have 0 minus 7, add an extra 8 because 8 divided by 7 also has a remainder of 0, so you can substitute it. Then 8 minus 7 is equal to 1. 33, 19200 is equal to 144 plus 1588 times what? Well, everything about this screams 12, but in case you needed more proof, you're canceling out 12 squared with 1600 minus 12 times 12. So 1600 times 12 is 19200. It should be blatantly obvious seeing this problem that they're looking for 12 though, because this is 12 squared. This is 1600 minus 12. It's pretty obvious. Which is larger, negative 11 over 12 or negative 10 over 11? Well, when you add a number to the numerator to the denominator, you increase its magnitude, make it closer to 1 and negative 1, 1 and negative 1. Because you can imagine negative 999,999 over, 1 and then a bunch of zeros is going to be pretty much the same thing as negative 1. So it approaches negative 1 as you continue to add 1 to the numerator and denominator. So therefore, the lesser value is going to be the one that increases its closeness to negative 1 or negative 11 over 12. So your greater one is negative 10 over 11. 45, 83 squared plus 22 squared. This is your very obvious trick you're going to use because they just give you two random squares. So you see, first off, this ones place is one more than this tens place. And this tens place and this ones place add up to 10. So you can use your trick. For the one with the ones place, one greater than tens place, that number, you square the digits, add them together, and multiply by 101. 64 plus 9 is 73. 73 times 101 is 7373. And that'll be your answer. Sum of the measures of the interior angle of a regular heptagon is what? Well, a triangle has 180 degrees, square 360, pentagon 540. Basically, the equation is 180 times number of sides minus 2, which will be 900 in this case. Okay, 47. Let 8 and 3 over m times n and 34 over 35 is equal to 26. Find m times n. Well, okay, if you plug in a value for 3, this is basically going to be 8 and something times 4, which is way too big. So a value of n equal to 2 will make things much more reasonable. So then once you have that, 2 convert to an improper fraction, 2 times 35 plus 34, 104 over 35. 26 divided by that, you only really care about the denominator. 26 divided by 104 simplifies to 1 over 4. So that's going to be your value right here. And I believe that should work. I'll make 100% sure because the key isn't here, but yes, that is indeed the answer. 48, 3 factorial times 6 factorial divided by 5 factorial times 4 factorial. We're going to split this into 2 segments, 6 factorial divided by 5 factorial, and 3 factorial divided by 4 factorial. Well, 5 factorial, or 6 factorial is 6 times 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1, and 5 factorial is 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. So the 5 times 4 times 3, etc., cancels each other out, and you're only left with 6. Then a similar process is done for 3 factorial over 4 factorial. Everything cancels except the 4. So then you just have 6 divided by 4 is 3 over 2. 49, adding numbers in base 11. Okay, 9 plus 0 minus 2 is 7. A is 10. 10 plus 3 minus 4 is 9. And then this 3 isn't subtracting or adding anything. 397. 50, 33 cubed is what? Well, 33 squared is 10,089, which is pretty close to 1,100. So once you have that, you can imagine it as 1,100 multiplied by 33, which is equivalent to 3 times 11 times 11 times 100. 11 squared is 121, times 3 is 363, and then times 100 is 36300. Okay, 51. If 1 over 3 plus 1 over 6 plus 1 over 10, these are triangular numbers. These very clearly scream triangular numbers. So this is 2 times 3 over 2, 3 times 4 over 2, 4 times 5 over 2, 5 times 6 over 2, etc. And sum of triangular numbers is 2n over n plus 1. Well, this denominator is 13, so it clearly indicates that n in this case is 12. And then the number 1 is technically a 1 over triangular number, so that's why this number doesn't completely match up. It would be 24 over 13, subtracting 1 gets you 11 over 13. So then once you have that value, you know you're on the 12th triangular number here. So in 12th triangular number, 12 times 13 over 2, 6 times 13, 78, and I am bad because I wrote 1 over 78, Jesus. Yeah, that's your answer. 52, 708 squared. Well, you have an empty tens place, which means we can separate these things on their own. 8 squared is 64. That'll be your tens and ones place. 7 times 8 plus 7 times 8 is 7 times 8 times 2, which is 112. 12 and then carry a 1. Then 7 squared plus 1 is your 50. 53, 8 and 1 half is what percent less than 12 and 1 half? Well, okay, 8.5 divided by 12.5. Multiply both the numerator and denominator by 8, and you get 8.5 times 8 over 100. Well, which is 64 plus 0.5 times 8, which is 68 over 100. And then what percent less? You subtract that 68% by 100%, and you get 32%. 54, 3 plus 7 plus 10 plus 17. This is a Fibonacci series. So sum of Fibonacci series is 2 times the last term plus the second to last term minus the second term. So 301 times 2 plus 186 minus 7. You can add those one digit at a time. 2 plus 6 minus 7 is 1. 0 plus 8 minus 0 is 8. And then 3 times 2 plus 1 is 7. And you'll get 781. 55. 33024 base 7 divided by 4 base 7. Well, it's pretty similar to dividing by 8. You're just taking the remainder more, basically. Anything that has a remainder of 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, or 3 when divided by 8 will also have that when divided by 4. So it's pretty similar to that. However, in base 7, 8 is 1, 1, because 1 times 7 plus 1, which means we can use our 11's trick, which works in any base. So you add and subtract each term, so 4 minus 2 plus 3 minus 3 plus 3, and you'll get a value of 2. 56, the perimeter of a square is decreased from 12 centimeters to 18 centimeters. Find the corresponding decrease in its area. Well, okay. The area is going to be equivalent to basically, you can imagine you're dividing these by 4 and then squaring them and subtracting. So we have a difference of squares. So take add them together, 18 plus 22, multiply by their difference, so 40 times 4. And because the perimeter is 4 times one of the sides and you're squaring that, you have to divide by 16. So 40 times 4 is equal to 160, divided by 16 is 10. 57, 21 plus 14 plus 9 1/3. This is a geometric series. Each term is the previous one multiplied by 2/3. The sum of infinite geometric series, first term over 1 minus the ratio, so 1 minus 2/3. 21 over 1/3, 21 times 3 is 63. 58, 150 fathoms is how many inches? Fathoms to feet, multiply by 6, 900. Feet to inches, multiply by 12. 9 times 12 is 108, add 2 zeros. 59, coefficient of x cubed y squared in the expansion, that is what? Well, the coefficient is based on a few things. The coefficient of the x powered to the x power times the coefficient of the y powered to the y power, plus this number combination, one of these two numbers. So 5 combination 3. So in 5 combination 3 is 10. 5 times 4 over 2, 10. So then now you have 5 cubed times essentially 2 squared times 10. So 5 squared times 2 squared is equal to 10 squared. So, and you just have 5 powered to 1 left over. So 5 powered to 1 times 10 powered to 2 times 10 is 5,000. 60, a rectangular lot is 3/8 of a mile by 7/16 of a mile. The area of your lot is what? Well, 3/8 times 7/16, we're going to figure out what proportion of a square mile it is. Multiply them, you get 21 over 128. That's pretty close to 1/6. So you can square the ratio to feet. They're 5,280 square feet in a mile. Well, we don't need to deal with something that weird, so just 5,300 squared. It's going to be pretty close to 2,800 if you remember how squares close to 50 work. 2,800 over 6. Divide that and you get a value of around 4,650. And that should get you in range. 61, write in figures 304/5 million, 3,030. 300 million, 4/5 of a million, so 800,000, 3,030. So yeah, you're just writing all that down. 62, y varies inversely with x. Y is equal to 12 and x is equal to 7. Inversely means that k over x will get you y. So some value over 7 will get you 12. Well, a value of 84 will do that. And then you have 84 over 11. 63, given a few matrices and its result, find k. Well, let's use this a value. This a value is based on these two numbers multiplied by these two numbers right here. So this 1 goes over to this 0. This 3 goes over to this k. 1 times 0 plus 3k is 12. K is equal to 4. 64. This is another one of your really complicated quadratic residuals. You notice that this is a prime number. This is approximately half of the prime, so which means you need to look for quadratic residuals. In other words, first off, simplify this to 18. because you're taking the remainder, you can take the remainder basically any time. So 47 divided by 29 has a remainder of 18, 18 power to 15. Look for perfect squares adding 29 or 18 plus 29 times some value. So 18 and then 18 plus 29 and then 18 plus 58. If you do that all the way to till 14 squared, the highest possible quadratic residual that doesn't have a corresponding thing less than it, and you won't find any that result in perfect squares, which means 18 power to 14 mod 29 is the prime minus 1, not 1. And once you have that, you multiply it by 18. Negative 1 times 18 is equal to negative 18. And then, so negative 18 divided by 27, add 29, you have a remainder of 11. The first four digits after a decimal point and decimal representation of 13 over 45 are what? 13 over 45 is 26 over 90. However, whenever you're converting from decimals to fractions, you take the starting number 28. You see that the 2 is not repeating, so you subtract 2 from it to get 26, and then 26 over 90. So you're just reversing that process, adding 2 to 26 instead of subtracting it, and you get 2888. 66. A coin is tossed 3 times. What's the probability of getting 2 heads and 1 tail? Well, the probability of that happening, there are 3 ways you can do that. 3 combination 2. Definition of combination. So to do that, you'll get 3. For each coin flip, there are 2 possible combinations. So there are a total of 2 power to 3 or 8 ways it can go out. So 37.5 will be your answer. 3 over 8. 67, what's 6 plus 4i divided by 2i equals a plus b? Find b. Well, whenever you're dividing by an imaginary number, that means that the real and imaginary part of this imaginary number right here is going to flip. So this 6 is going to become imaginary, and this 4 is going to become real. So multiply the numerator and the denominator that we care about by I, and you get 6i over 2 times I squared, or negative 2. So 6i over negative 2, b is negative 3. 68, arc sine of cosine of pi over 6 is what? Well, cosine of pi over 6 is equal to sine of pi over 3. That's a trigonometric identity you should know. So pi over 3 converting to degrees, multiply by 180, divide by pi, and you get 60 degrees. 69.77 base 8 is what? Base 10. This is equivalent to 7 over 8. This is equivalent to 7 over 8 squared. So 7 over 64. Convert this to the common base. 56 over 64 plus 7 over 64 is 63 over 64. Okay, 70. 5 cubed, 125, divided by 4 factorial, 24, times 3 powered to 5, 81 times 3 is equal to 243, divided by 2. So this is, if you simplify these out, it's a little bit more than 5 times 120, which is 600, so 620 will get you in range. 71, f of x is equal to 5x minus 7 over 3 plus 2, f of negative 1 of 11 is what? Well, plug in 11 for your y and solve for x. 11 is equal to this. Subtract 2 on both sides, get 9. Multiply by 3 on both sides, get 27. Add 7 on both sides, get 34. Divided by 5, get 34 over 5. 32, if f of g of negative 2/3, and those are the 2 equations, find the value. Well, g of negative 2/3, we're going to put this in terms of improper fractions. 5 times negative 2 over thirds is negative 10 over 3. Then you're subtracting 3, which is 9 over 3, equivalent. So you get negative 19 over 3. Plug that into f of x. Well, you get negative 19 over 3 times 3. Negative 19 plus 5 is negative 14. 33, let f of x is equal to cosine of 2x. Find f double prime of 2 pi over 3. Well, okay. The derivative of cosine is negative sine. And then the derivative of 2x is 2. So chain rule, you multiply by 2. Negative 2 sine of 2x. And then take the second derivative, same process. Derivative of sine is cosine. Multiply that by 2, you get negative 4 cosine of 2 pi. Plug it in, cosine of 4 pi over 3 is negative 1/2, and you get 2. 74, given f of x equal to negative x squared plus 4x plus 1, maximum point at AB, find A plus B. Well, the maximum happens at the axis of symmetry, which in a quadratic is negative b over 2a. So negative 4 over negative 2 is 2, x equals 2. Then plug in x equals 2 into this equation and get y value 5. 2 plus 5 is 7. Play 5, find the slope of the line tangent to f of x at the origin. Well, okay. You have some, so the tangent line is based on the derivative, so take the derivative of that and you get 3x squared plus 2. That's power rule and all that. So, and then you plug in x equals 0 and you get a value of 2. 76, integral from 1 to 2 and integral of 2 to 3 to xy dy dx. I'm going to skip the explanation as to why this works, but basically, whenever you're given something like this, you take these bounds, you square them and subtract them and divide by 2. And then you multiply that by the same thing done over here. So 3 squared minus 2 squared is 5, 5 over 2. Do the same thing for this 2 and 3. So you get 3, 3 over 2, 5 over 2 times 3 over 2 is 15 over 4. It's mostly because this y is treated as a constant whenever you're not taking the integral with that. So you're just having yx squared, and then once you solve that, you just have y squared over 2 times your amount you got here. Let xy be the coefficient of x is equal to y squared minus 1. X is equal to what? Well, the vertex happens at y is equal to 0, and therefore x is negative 1, because there's no b value. And then once it happens, the focus is based on the y squared, or normally x squared, but we're kind of flipping everything. Y squared coefficient is 1, which means to find out the focus, you divide by 4. You inverse that value, still get 1, and divide by 4. So since your x value is at negative 1, it's going up positively. Negative 1 plus 1 over 4 is negative 3 over 4. 38, 330 divided by 0.6875. The 0.6875 is equivalent to 11 over 16. So you see this 875 and all that stuff, it's just scream that's over like 8 or 16. So yeah, divide by that. 330 divided by 11 times 16 is 30 times 16 is 480. Okay, given 1, 1, 3, 5, 6, 12, 10, 22, t minus p is what? Well, this 1 and 1 indicates that this is a split series again. So 1, and these are based on triangular numbers, plus 2, plus 3, plus 4, and pentagonal numbers, plus 4, plus 7, plus 10. So what that means is that you can subtract them, and there'll be an easy to see pattern for that. 1 minus 1 is 0, 3 minus 5 is negative 2, 6 minus 12 is negative 6, 10 minus 22 is negative 12. You're subtracting 2, subtracting 4, subtracting 6, subtracting 8, and you get a value of negative 20. Finally, 80, probably the hardest question 80 approximation I've seen, but ln of 100,000 cubed. This is really jank and weird. So x squared is pretty close to 7.5, and e cubed is close to 20. So you should recognize that 10 is approximately equivalent to e power to 2.3. So ln of 10 is around 2.3. Then there are 5 zeros, so you multiply that number by 5. 2.3 times 5 is equal to 11.5. And then you have to cube that. Well, it's 11.5 cubed is in between 11 cubed and 12 cubed, which you should have memorized to be these as follows. So take around the average of that a little bit higher, and it'll get 1550, which will be in range. Kind of jank, but I don't know. Getting that far on this test is a pretty major accomplishment anyway. And that'll be the entire test. I hope you enjoyed. If you want any more in-depth explanations, please ask me in person or leave a comment. See you guys later.